Hey, what's up guys? My name is CJ or Me Plus Pi and welcome to my Maggot King guide. This is both a learner and max efficiency guide. Everything you need to know is going to be here. Everything's going to be time stamped. Let's get to it. The Maggot King is a pretty straightforward boss. Most of the depth comes from just a couple techniques and optimizing your gear setup. So we're here in Vampirium. We're going to use this transportation method. If you do not have this unlocked, you're going to have to run all the way through this windy forest and go down the southwest path and help somebody being attacked by 3 bugs. After you do that, this transportation method will be unlocked. Then come over to the transportation method, follow the scout, and head northeast. That is where the boss lair is going to be, right over here at the dark wood trees. Before you fight the boss, there are a few plugins you might want to use. Type this into your custom menu swaps in order to prioritize the larva, and make sure you have shift click walk here enabled. You may want better NPC highlight to highlight the grub's actual click box while they're in the air, because it's a bit weird. Having the Maggot King's true tile is super useful during melee phase. The object hider plugin, you're able to shift right click the carrion on the ground and hide it. This will allow you to see the shadows easier. And something I've been messing around with is camera points. This is a plugin that allows you to bind keys to place your camera at a specific distance. I find this particularly useful because you want to be zoomed out to shoot the grubs in the air, but you want to be zoomed in during the melee phase. If you guys have any other plugin suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Now we're going to talk about the boss mechanics. These boss mechanics are really not that complicated. I'm going to tell you what they are and how much damage they can do to you. I stood around for a while letting the boss hit me, so I think I have pretty accurate numbers, but they could always be just a little bit higher, so that's your warning. The boss will shoot a green projectile that is the range attack. It can deal about 38 damage. This will also spread out to 3 acid splats. If you get hit by an acid splat, it can do up to 4 damage. Same thing for the mage attack, except this time it's a bit orange. Stepping in a poison splat will reduce your poison immunity by 45 seconds, and stepping in an orange splat will delay your next attack by 1 tick and drain a stat. If you for some reason do not have anti-poison, the poison will tick for 8s. The carrion swarm attack, the boss will do a roar. When this happens, you cannot have a protection prayer enabled. Redemption is allowed. This will hit you 3 times for up to about 40 damage. As this roar happens, some rocks will begin to fall into the arena. If you get hit directly by these, they could do up to 19 damage. Then those rocks will break off into smaller splatter, and those can deal up to 6 damage. When the boss comes melee distance, it will slam its head down its 3 center tiles, hitting the entire row for up to 55 damage. Keep in mind there could be poison splats, so this could stack you upwards of 60 damage. If you do not kill the grubs before they reach the arena, they could bite you, ramping up damage every tick. This also heals the boss. Simply move away or walk through them to avoid them. In the earlier half of the fight, it's important to kill the grubs before they get to the arena, because otherwise they will eat the carrion on the ground and heal the boss. And then you're fighting an upward battle. Basically, all of the mechanics are just moving to avoid shadows and remembering whether it is prey range or prey mage phase. Now we're going to talk about the boss's behavior. The boss will always start by hitting with range. It'll shoot between 4 and 7 shots before it does a carrion screech. Once it does its first carrion screech attack, this will switch to mage, and then it will alternate back and forth. When the boss has reached 1250 HP, it will begin throwing 1 grub every time it does its carrion screech. The most important bit of information to know about this distance part of the fight is what HP the boss will finally come to melee you. Whenever the boss does a carrion screech, it'll check to see if it is at 985 health or less, but if it's at 987, it won't. I believe this is key to the boss because you need to know when the melee is coming so you can be prepared, or if you're just barely pushing that limit, sending an extra ZCB spec from surge potting could be the way to go. The sooner the boss is engaging in melee, the sooner the boss will die. After the boss's first melee phase, it'll once again check its HP. If it's above 20%, it will go backwards, forcing you to fight it at a distance again, attacking with whatever style it wasn't attacking you with before it went to melee. Again, just alternating. If you can't remember what it was, a good tip is to look at the floor, and whatever there's more of, it's usually the opposite. The boss will continue alternating between melee phase and distance phase until eventually you get it to 20%. It will begin in rage phase, throwing 4 grubs instead of 1. Now that the boss is in rage phase, it will no longer step back. It'll only be melee for the rest of the fight. Whenever the boss is meleeing, it'll slam its head down between 4 and 6 times and then do its carrion screech. It's worth noting that every time the boss slams its head down, it'll attempt to throw 3 poison splats, which is why I opt for the 4 tick method over the 5 tick method, which we will now talk about. The boss will slam its head every 4 ticks if you keep it in place by walking in a tile and then stepping out and then back in again, making sure you dodge the slam itself, or you can avoid the slam and let the boss realign with you to make it a 5 tick cycle. This is what a 4 tick cycle looks like. And this is what a 5 tick cycle looks like. You've probably noticed that I'm getting an extra hit in. That is because this boss has a weak point when it pops its head out. Click to the side once you see the shadows from the boss about to slam down, and then click the boss as you see it lunge forward, and you'll get double accuracy and 150% damage on your next hit splat. This hit has no cooldown, so you can use any weapon no matter how slow it is, making things like Darok or an Elder Maul extremely strong. You could also consider a Saradomin Godsword spec if you want to sustain, or just keep it simple and use a 4-tick. I should highlight that the scythe is kind of bad for this hit because it only buffs the first hit splat, not the other two. For this reason alone, I believe it is worth to forego the scythe of this boss and actually just use a 4-tick, the Inquisitor Mace's Biss, with a bludgeon being an accessible secondary. Before we move on to gear, it's worth noting that whenever you attack with a bow, you'll be able to do so immediately but be put on the cooldown of the weapon you use. Web Weaver is going to be best. Crystal Bow also works great, but is 1 tick slower. So now that I've taught you everything that the boss will do and everything you should do to it, let's talk about your gear setup. Your gear setup is the single most important thing at this boss, and we're going to break it up into 4 parts, being special attack weapon, bonus hit, melee gear, and distance gear. Now when it comes to special attack, I think Zerite Crossbow is absolutely the way to go. Reason being is the sooner you get out of distance phase, the sooner you're able to hit those big hits in melee phase. I think that surpasses any defense reduction you might offer, but if you don't have a Zerite Crossbow, there are some alternatives for damage or sustain, or you could use that reduction. For bonus hit, the highest damaging option is Darok. You don't even have to be that low of HP for it to still be Biss, but I understand if you don't want to play risky, so some alternatives include the Elder Maul, Colossal Blade, Soul Reaper Axe, a God Sword. You could just camp the Inquisitor Mace or Bludgeon, and this is also the best time to dump your damaging specs if you've got something like the Crimson Kiston or a Dragon Mace. As long as you're hitting the boss, there's not really a wrong answer, but there are better options than others. If I couldn't convince you to try Darok, the melee gear is going to get a bit deep. The general rule of thumb is the higher the strength bonus, the better. Inquisitor is Biss, but if you don't have it, Oath Plate with a Scythe on Slash is going to be better. Blood Fury could be useful, but it's worth remembering that a majority of your damage is going to come during that bonus hit. But there is also a whole other portion of the fight that we got to consider, which is the distance part of the fight. A Harmonized Staff with Sunfire Runes is going to be the absolute highest damage. You could also use Max Mage with the Tumigan Shadow. From there, you should probably go with the ZCB setup with Ruby Dragon Bolt Ease. If you're working with a budget, Adamant Ruby Bolts aren't that much different than Dragon Ruby Bolts here, and you could also use a Twin Flame Staff instead of the Harmonized or a Tumigan Shadow. It mostly comes down to your weapon here. Your gear is just whatever the highest accuracy and damage. Your inventory should probably include a Draken's Medallion, a Teleport Out, offensive pots, a couple prayer pots. I'd recommend Thralls if you're not using a Harmonized. That means you also need your Book of the Dead. Aether Runes are useful here, and make sure you got a bow to one-shot the grubs. Last but not least, make sure you've got an anti-poison of some kind, and then fill the rest of your inventory with food. To end this guide, I wanted to include some perfect cycles using the Darok Axe, combined with a 4-tick weapon. This is the absolute pinnacle of the boss. It's going to result in the fastest kills on average, and you'll have a blast doing it. This clip is a great example of the power of this combo, because I was able to skip straight to Enrage phase. The boss never stepped back again. This next clip is an example of something that happens quite frequently. If an orange splatter gets onto your walk under tile, you might have to miss a hit, but it's basically the same rhythm of walk, click, walk, click, walk, click. Bludgeon delay was, yeah. I just f***ed this dude. And this clip shows even if you make a mistake, you might just live. I'm dead. And for this last clip, a lot was going on. I took some Rock Splatter to get a little bit lower HP in control because we know how much damage it does. Then I had a Maggot coming and I didn't want it to kill me. I should have put Redemption up here, but I didn't. Remember that Redemption is always safe during these melee phases. And for my final piece of tech, if Rock Shadow doesn't have another Rock Shadow by it, you're able to safely step on that tile and avoid the splatter, similar to Doom. And then I tactically stepped in the acid splat knowing that it wouldn't kill me. Congratulations, you just mastered the Maggot King. This guide took me quite a while, so I hope it was helpful and I hope you learned something. If you did, I'd really appreciate a like on the video and maybe even a subscription to the channel. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again. Take care of yourselves. Peace, peace, peace.